So I'm excited because last week we shared this story. It was the oldest version of this story that I have found, Could Anything Be Worse? And this week we are going to read It Could Always Be Worse. So this first one was written by Marilyn Hirsch, 1874, I believe. And this one written by Margot Zemach, and it was published by Farrar, Straus and Giroux. She also did the pictures, and this one was published 2 years later in 1976. All right, are you ready? I'm going to share my screen so you can see the pictures. I'm very excited because I found this book on a website called archive.org, and they did the pictures for me, so I didn't even have to do them. So here we go. It Could Always Be Worse. And this was an old version from the Boston Public Library. It Could Always Be Worse by Margot Zemach. Once upon a time, in a small village, a poor, unfortunate man lived with his mother, his wife, and his 6 children in a little one-room hut. Because they were so crowded, the man and his wife often argued. The children were noisy and they fought. In winter, when the nights were long and the days were cold, life was especially hard. Couldn't go out. The hut was full of crying and quarreling. One day, when the poor, unfortunate man couldn't stand it anymore, he ran to the rabbi for advice. Baird, can you imagine all your entire family and all the chickens living in one room? Oh my gosh, crazy. Holy Rabbi, he cried, things are in a bad way with me and getting worse. We're so poor that my mother, my wife, my 6 children, and I all live together in one small hut. We are too crowded and there's so much noise. Help me, Rabbi. I'll do whatever you say. You always have to do whatever the rabbi says, within reason. The rabbi thought and pulled on his beard. At last he said, tell me, my poor man, do you have any animals? Perhaps a chicken or 2? Yes, said the man, I do have a few chickens, also a rooster and a goose. Ah, fine, said the rabbi. Now go home, take the chickens, the rooster, and the goose into your hut to live with you. Yes, indeed, Rabbi, said the man, though he was a bit surprised. Oh my goodness, Baird, now it really is as if your chickens are coming to live in your house with you. Oh my goodness. What would that be like? Would that be so crazy? So crazy. The poor, fortunate man hurried home and took the chickens and the rooster and the goose out of the shed and into his little hut. When some days or a week had gone by, life in the hut was worse than before. Oh my gosh, you guys, what do you see? What's going on? What's going on, Vered?
They're laying more eggs. They're messing up everything.
Oh my gosh, they're messing up everything. I see a huge balagan. Do you see a balagan? Just craziness. Just amazingly crazy. Looks like everybody's fighting, even the chickens. Now, with the quarreling and the crying, there was honking and crowing and clucking. There were feathers in the soup. Can't taste good. The hut stayed just as small and the children grew bigger. When the poor unfortunate man couldn't stand it any longer, he again ran to the rabbi for help. "Holy Rabbi," he cried, "what a misfortune has befallen me. Now, with the crying and the quarreling, with the honking and the clucking and the crowing, there are others in the soup. Rabbi, it couldn't be worse." You guys say that with me? It couldn't be worse. Help me, please. The rabbi listened and thought. At last he said, "Tell me, do you happen to have a goat?" "Oh, yes, I do have an old goat, but he is not worth very much." "Excellent," said the rabbi. "Now go home and take the old goat into your hut to live with you." "Oh, no, do you really mean it, Rabbi?" cried the man. Come, my good man, do as I say at once." The poor, unfortunate man tramped back home with his head hanging down, and he took the old goat into his hut. Is this going to be a thing? What do you think? It's going to be great, right?
No.
What's going to happen, Barry? What do you think?
It's going to be even messier.
Oh my gosh. Let's see. Oh my God. When some days or a week had gone by, life in the little hut was much worse. Now, with the crying and the quarreling and the clucking and the honking and the crowing, the goat went wild, pushing and butting everyone with his horns. The hut seemed smaller and the children grew bigger. When the poor, unfortunate man couldn't stand it another minute, he again ran to the rabbi. "Holy Rabbi, help me," he screamed. "Now the goat is running wild. My life is a nightmare." Rabbi listened and thought. At last he said, "Tell me, my poor man, is it possible you have a cow? Young or old, doesn't matter." "Yes, Rabbi, it's true. I have a cow," said the poor man fearfully. "Go home then," said the rabbi, and do what?
But bring the cow inside.
"Oh no, surely not, Rabbi," cried the man. "Do it at once."
What did you see? What
I did not see what you wrote. What did you write in the chat?
Look.
I am looking in the chat. What did you write in the chat? No, that's true. That's exactly what the man would say. No, the poor unfortunate man trudged home with a heavy heart, and he took the cow into his hut. "Is the rabbi crazy?" he thought. Oh my gosh. There it is hard for me to read the chat and read the story at the same time. When some days or a week had gone by, oh my gosh, he's living for a week. Look at that cow. The life in the hut was very much worse than before. Everyone quarreled, even the chickens. The goat ran wild. The cow trampled everything. The poor man could hardly believe his misfortune. At last, when he could stand it no longer, he ran to the
rabbi
for help. "Holy Rabbi," he shrieked, "help me, save me. The end of the world has come. The cow is trampling everything. There is no room even to breathe. It's worse than a nightmare." The rabbi thought and listened and thought. At last he said, "Go home now, my poor unfortunate man, and let the animals out of your hut." I will, I'll do it right away," said the man. The poor unfortunate man hurried home and let the cow, the goat, the chickens, the goose, and the rooster out of his little hut. That night, the poor man and all his family slept peacefully. There was no crowing, no clucking, no honking. There was plenty of room to breathe. The very next day, the poor man went back to the rabbi. What do you think he's going to say to the rabbi when he goes back?
Yay, yay, yay.
He's going to say, yay. What do you think, Shira?
He's going to say, yay.
Yay! All right, let's see what he says. Holy Rabbi, he cried, you have made life sweet for me. With just my family in the hut, it's so quiet, so roomy, so peaceful. What a pleasure. In other words, you guys were right. He said, yay. So what do you think, you guys? What do you like? Which one did you like better? Do you remember? Do you like today's story or tomorrow or last week's story better?
I like last week's story better.
You like last week's story better?
Neither story better.
Neither story better. You want to say more about that?
No.
No. Okay. Well, next time we are together, I'm going to bring you another version of this story, but one that takes place nowadays.